Tonight, Canada officially recognizes a Palestinian state.
We have to establish a culture of peace, a culture of dignity, and a culture of recognition.
Why the Prime Minister says now is the time. Plus, the reaction coming in from the Middle East. This just hours before Mark Carney joins world leaders at the United Nations, and CBC News is there. We're also in Arizona as tens of thousands gather to remember Charlie Kirk.
They have no idea what they've done.
And some of his biggest, most powerful supporters take the stage.
None of us will ever forget Charlie Kirk, and neither now will history.
And they're heading to the playoffs.
Let's go!
The Blue Jays clinch a spot in the postseason.
From CBC News, this is The National with Erica Johnson.
Thanks for joining us. Prime Minister Mark Carney has now formally announced a controversial shift in Canada's policy toward the Middle East. Canada now recognizes the state of Palestine. Carney is in New York ahead of tomorrow's United Nations General Assembly. There, joined by the UK, Australia, Portugal, and several others, Canada will formally recognize a Palestinian state, an attempt to boost efforts for peace and a two-state solution at a time when, on the ground, the prospects of both seem more distant than ever. Our coverage tonight stretches from the Middle East to the United Nations to the nation's capital. JP Tasker starts us off.
As Gazans mourn victims of Israel's latest offensive and dozens of Israeli hostages remain in Hamas captivity, Canada is officially recognizing the state of Palestine and ramping up pressure for a two-state solution. Prime Minister Mark Carney says this move empowers those who seek peaceful coexistence and the end of Hamas. And it's needed now because the Israeli government is working methodically to prevent the prospect of a Palestinian state.
We have to establish a culture of peace, a culture of dignity, and a culture of recognition. And that's exactly what we're trying to do.
Canada's ambassador to the United Nations again laid out conditions that Palestine should be democratic and demilitarized, led not by Hamas, but a reformed Palestinian Authority.
It's critical for not only for Israel's security, but for the security of Palestinians.
Canada is working in tandem with Australia, Portugal, and the UK.
We are acting to keep alive the possibility of peace.
Others, including France, are expected to follow suit at the UN General Assembly this week.
Total war is not the answer, because it's just killing the credibility of Israel.
The Palestinian delegation is cautiously optimistic.
These countries are determined to take steps not to allow this tragic situation to continue and to make it the destiny of the Palestinians and the Israeli Jews to continue fighting forever. What we need is peace.
Still, the Israeli Prime Minister is telling Canada and others there will be no Palestinian state.
Hamas already today is rejoicing. Supporters of Hamas and the streets of Canada are very happy.
And Israel's ambassador to Canada is condemning Carney's decision, saying it rewards terrorists.
No one in Israel thinks today that a two-state solution is viable. So if you sign a paper here in Ottawa or in Australia or wherever, it does not make a change for us. We are not ready for it. We are not ready for a two-state solution.
While this Western recognition is a symbolic victory for the Palestinians, it does little to change the reality on the ground. And the Americans, they're opposed to all of it. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
And Sasha Petrusik joins us now from Jerusalem. Sasha, you spent the day in the occupied West Bank. What did Palestinians there tell you?
Feelings in Ramallah are really swinging between optimism and skepticism. Many Palestinians say recognition won't help resolve differences with Israel, but others say it brings a little light into two very dark years.
Oh, for sure it does make a difference, because we need to have two-state solutions. That's it, it's over. You have to. Don't forget, it's our right to have our country.
Now, these people are in the occupied West Bank, where there's been a lot of violence between Palestinians and Israeli settlers and much military action. But it's nothing like what Palestinians in Gaza have endured. Thousands are still seeking a safe space amidst more war. Many aren't impressed. They recognize Palestine, yet they keep sending weapons to Israel, says this man. Still, the Palestinian Authority, which runs much of the occupied West Bank, is more optimistic.
This recognition is certainly not symbolic. It is a practical, tangible, irreversible step that countries must take if they are invested in preserving the two-state solution.
The reaction from Israel's leadership was far less optimistic.
There was a tougher, more threatening message from Israel, where settler leaders are demanding immediate annexation of the West Bank instead of the creeping takeover underway now. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he'll keep expanding Jewish settlements and promises a full response when he gets back from the UN and meetings with U.S. President Donald Trump this week.
Thanks for this. That's Sasha Petrusik in Jerusalem. And Evan Dyer is in New York outside the United Nations, where the Prime Minister will also be meeting with world leaders. Evan, take us through what we expect to see in the coming days.
Well, the main event, Erica, this year's UN General Assembly will be a meeting of leaders on Monday afternoon called the Conference for the Peaceful Settlement of the Question of Palestine and the Implementation of the Two-State Solution. And that's going to bring together the leaders of the countries that already recognize Palestine, such as Britain and Canada, with others such as France, who are expected to recognize during this General Assembly, possibly even announcing those recognitions during that meeting.
So Canada made the move now, but the list of countries recognizing Palestine has been growing for some time.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, this is the second wave of recognitions to take place during the Gaza war. Last spring, we saw Ireland, Norway, and Spain all recognize Palestine together on the same day. But less noticed were some other countries that did so as well. Slovenia did it separately, much of the Caribbean. We now expect to see about 5 more European nations join that trend. And another country that may join is New Zealand, which would leave the U.S. as the only major speaking English country that doesn't recognize a Palestinian state. But the Trump administration remains doggedly opposed to recognition, so opposed, in fact, that they refuse to issue visas for the Palestinian delegation to this General Assembly. That ban violates the treaty the U.S. government signed 80 years ago when the United Nations agreed to put its headquarters in New York. The Palestinian leader, Mahmoud Abbas, is going to address the assembly anyway. He'll do it virtually.
Okay, thanks for this, Evan. Evan Dyer in New York. Chief Correspondent Adrienne Arsenault is also heading to the United Nations Monday. She'll be hosting our special coverage right here on The National. In Arizona tonight, a massive display of grief, patriotism, and politics as tens of thousands gathered at a memorial for Charlie Kirk, the U.S. president among those paying tribute to the conservative activist. Katie Simpson is there, where Kirk's widow also spoke and chose to send a message.
It was clear very quickly turnout for Charlie Kirk's memorial would exceed capacity. Hours before the doors opened, tens of thousands of people lined up ready for security checks, hoping to witness this pivotal moment for the MAGA movement. Supporters filling Arizona's NFL stadium and a nearby overflow hockey arena. But of all those watching, Kirk's widow, Erica, had a message for one. After taking a moment to gather herself, she spoke directly to the man accused of killing her husband earlier this month at a university event.
That young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do.
At times, it felt like a memorial, but also a political rally. The Trump administration sat in the VIP section, crediting their grip on power to Kirk's advocacy work. Though the president says he will not adopt Kirk's approach to politics.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent.
Kirk's widow vowed to continue on with her husband's work. He had become a polarizing figure, beloved by conservatives. He also drew condemnation from critics who disagreed with some of his far-right views and the inflammatory language he sometimes used to make his points. Kirk's supporters say part of his appeal was the way he merged his advocacy with his faith.
They have no idea what they've done. And they just multiplied Charlie exponentially. And I'm grateful that that's happened, but we miss him.
There's a mix of hope and anger at the memorial outside Kirk's office, and no concerns about the government crackdown targeting Kirk's critics.
I don't believe that we have to worry about free speech because I believe that the leadership that we have in the current administration will guide us in the right direction.
If anything, the people we spoke with here feel a shift in American politics, a pendulum swing.
Because I watched this through the Biden administration and times during Trump when our stars were being canceled because of their political beliefs, and those political beliefs were conservative.
Seeing Donald Trump, his cabinet, and members of his senior White House staff in that venue with the Kirk family and his deeply religious followers, it sends a very clear message that this is where power lies within the MAGA movement, and more broadly, where power lies in the U.S.
And Katie, what is the sense you're getting from the supporters you've spoken to?
You know, we talked with people who lined up for hours and either gave up and didn't want to keep waiting and didn't go in, or they couldn't actually get in. And even though there might have been a little bit of disappointment, the overall sense is they see this as a good thing, that they couldn't get in. It's a positive because it's just another sign that their movement is growing.
Okay, thanks for this, Katie. Katie Simpson reporting from Glendale, Arizona. The Trump administration's latest move to crack down on immigration is now in effect. It's a hefty fee for new applicants of a skilled foreign worker visa. Lisa Shing now with how it could impact companies and workers worldwide.
Okay.
A new measure cracking down on immigration.
The country would rather not have to pay $100,000, but they'd rather, how do you do that? You hire Americans.
Late Friday, Donald Trump signing an executive order imposing a $100,000 fee on H-1B visa applications.
Stop bringing in people to take our jobs.
The program is often used by tech companies to bring in highly skilled foreign workers to fill jobs when they say they cannot find American labor. Critics say the system is abused. The details of the change, though, weren't immediately clear. Companies scrambled to warn vacationing workers to return, others to stay in the U.S.
$100,000 a year for H-1B visas.
The White House later clarifying it's a one-time charge and only applies to new visas. The policy largely affecting India, the biggest beneficiary of H-1B visas last year, accounting for 71% of approved applications. China, a distant second at about 11%. About 1% of H-1B visa holders are Canadian.
If you're looking at top talent who are already being paid hundreds of thousands of dollars and they're going to be here for multiple years, that may be just the cost of doing business.
India's Ministry of External Affairs says full implications of the measure are being studied, though some residents there are optimistic.
So it's a big hit for the tech talent, but also on the other side, I think it will be good for India because it could be a reverse brain drain.
And possibly good for other countries like Canada.
We'll probably have more foreign workers that are highly skilled leaving the United States and nearshoring to Canada.
The move is expected to affect big tech companies looking for qualified workers like Amazon, Meta, and Microsoft, hiring thousands of people through the H-1B visa program. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Chinese tariffs are sowing frustration on the prairies tonight. Canola farmers are bringing in one of their best crops in recent years, but they may not turn a profit on it. Alexander Silberman shows us how farmers are coping.
Rob Stone is starting to harvest a promising canola crop. Mild weather helping his southern Saskatchewan fields grow abundant.
It's a nice, tidy surprise.
But this year's harvest, once ripe with potential profit, is full of disappointment. Chinese tariffs on canola are continuing to push down prices, with a nearly 76% duty on seeds imposed last month, cutting off Canada's second largest buyer, a nearly $5 billion market.
It can be frustrating when you've got a strong crop.
So these tariffs for you are the difference between turning a profit and breaking even?
On canola, yes, and there's a lot of interactions on the farm balance sheet right now. that are being affected by that. That really is the difference between profit, break even, or maybe a loss.
Despite tariffs, canola prices remain historically high, but the costs of running a farm are rising too.
The thing that has been paying the bills is barely making any money.
This expert says many producers facing already thin margins are now left trying to avoid a loss.
They might be looking at alternatives in the spring to grow something else, just because it's less expensive.
Ottawa is offering financial relief, interest-free loans of up to $500,000. But industry groups say those measures fall short.
If this thing drags out, farmers are going to need to be supported somehow to get them through this.
The longer that flowers, the better the yield prospect.
Choosing which crops to grow is becoming a challenge the longer the trade disruption lingers.
It's not simple, I get that, but it needs to be fixed.
The federal government says it's committed to working with the industry to find solutions. But producers say all of the canola coming out of their fields needs market access now. Alexander Silberman, CBC News, Davidson, Saskatchewan.
Several drivers say they narrowly avoided head-on collisions on a winding mountainside highway in British Columbia. Close calls like this one have happened on the section of the Sea to Sky Highway between Whistler and Squamish. Some drivers are blaming temporary traffic lines that were painted last month for road work.
Honestly, half a second slower, faster, the outcome's probably a lot different. Definitely the scariest near miss I've had being a driver or a passenger.
BC officials say they're not aware of any collisions caused by the lines and that they meet requirements, but safety measures like signs, cones, and a reduced speed limit have been added to the highway. Calls are growing for the return of thousands of Ukrainian children unlawfully transferred to Russia.
I feel guilty because I didn't do enough to bring him back.
One mother's fight to bring home her son. The Fifth Estate sits down with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert.
I have been saying now for more than a year that we have to stop the war.
His outspoken push for a two-state peace plan. And the uphill battle for one BC nonprofit trying to protect our oceans.
Plastic pollution is one of the biggest challenges facing our time.
We're back in 2. Protesters in Manila pushing back against anti-riot police after they were blocked from reaching the presidential palace. They threw rocks and Molotov cocktails, while security forces used water cannons. Thousands marched in the capital, outraged over a government corruption scandal. The Philippine National Police said it made 17 arrests. And in Hungary, protesters are accusing the government of misleading the public using state-funded propaganda that targets political opponents and critics. The government says the information campaigns are factual. This comes ahead of what's believed could be a tough spring election for Prime Minister Viktor Orban. At the United Nations this week, the Prime Minister and Ukraine's president will push to bring home thousands of Ukrainian children who've been taken to Russia. As Briar Stewart tells us, this comes amidst calls to ramp up pressure on Moscow.
Hanna Zemeshaleva has been trying to find out any information about her son, Anton Volkovich. Born with a serious neurological condition, he'd been living in a care facility in Ukraine's Kherson region. When Russian troops captured that area in 2022, those living there were forcibly transferred, including her now 23-year-old son.
I feel guilty because I didn't do enough to bring him back.
Russian officials said that her son is in poor health and that she needs to come to Russian-occupied Ukraine to give permission to move him.
Ridiculous, yes, because I'm not a doctor. I can't understand if he okay. It's dangerous, yes, for me to go there.
Ukrainian officials say since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion, more than 19,000 children have been forcibly transferred by Russia. Less than 10% of them have been returned.
He's not a baby, but he's still a child.
Miriam Lambert is with the Emil Foundation, a nonprofit that's helped to return Ukrainian children. Anton's mom made her this bracelet.
She said that I should remove it when her son is back. We never want to sell fairy tales, so we always tell the truth to the parents. We always tell them that we will do everything possible.
But experts say it's hard to track down the children. In some cases, names have been changed, or they've been sent to one of more than 200 camps across Russia and the occupied territories.
One of the problems that we've got is we haven't got accurate information. And that's really one of the things that we're calling for, is to kind of go, we have to have transparency about what has happened to these children.
Russia maintains that it's protecting vulnerable children, saying they were evacuated from dangerous areas. But the country's president and its National Children's Commissioner are wanted by the International Criminal Court for the unlawful transfer of children. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
Israel's former prime minister is sharing his vision to establish a Palestinian state.
Somehow we'll be able to live together with open hearts and open minds.
Why Ehud Olmert says this is the only path to lasting peace.
Hey, they've got the weather covered for the entire winter. How can they be wrong?
Millions turn to the annual almanacs for a look at the long-term weather. But just how accurate are they? The National takes you deeper into the stories shaping our world next.
The 1-0. Ground ball to second. And the Blue Jays are going to the postseason.
The Toronto Blue Jays are now heading to the postseason. The Jays officially clinched a playoff spot with an 8-5 win over the Kansas City Royals. It will be the first postseason appearance for the Jays since 2023. The team celebrated the win the moment they hit the clubhouse.
This is the first step in where we want to go, right, boys? Yes, sir. Yeah. This is fun to celebrate. Let's go.
The Jays are only 2 games ahead of the New York Yankees and will focus this week on trying to clinch top spot in their division. Canada falling behind the U.S. to capture silver in the men's 4x100-meter relay at the World Athletics Championships. The Canadians still posted a season best time of 37.55 seconds. Last year, they topped the podium, winning gold at the Summer Olympics in Paris. You're about to get an inside look at what's being called the first facility of its kind in Canada, recycling plastic waste from the ocean. It's a global problem of daunting proportions. Yasmin Hanea shows us how one group is trying to help turn the tide.
This used to be a fishing net.
Millions of these pellets are giving new life to plastic fishing gear choking oceans and coastlines.
Right now, plastic pollution is one of the biggest challenges facing our time.
Worldwide, about 640,000 tons of abandoned, lost, or discarded fishing gear are left in oceans annually, a leading cause of marine animal deaths. Whales and dolphins can become entangled in the waste, and it can also be mistaken for food.
And we really need to be conserving the biodiversity we have in Canada as well as internationally. So we really need to be better managing these materials.
It's why BC-based Ocean Legacy opened Canada's first marine plastic recycling facility. Here, fishing ropes, nets, and other materials are melted, diced into tiny pellets, then molded into new products.
And these can be used for just about anything from signage and construction to different paneling.
Even patio furniture. Ocean Legacy has relied on money from federal and provincial ocean cleanup projects, but that funding stopped this year. Now the organization is bringing in less than 50% of what it needs to sustain operations.
It's impacted Ocean Legacy, but also the entire community that's involved in ocean cleanup.
And even at full capacity, some say recycling is only just scratching the surface.
The reality is, if we don't stop plastic production, if we don't stop wasting so much plastic and generating so much plastic waste, it's just going to always be cleaning up a mess that we're constantly making.
Every piece of plastic that's ever been produced since the 50s exists in some capacity on this planet.
While Ocean Legacy plans to expand operations across the country, its ultimate goal is to not exist. Yasmin Ghaneya, CBC News, Richmond, British Columbia.
Now it's time to dig deeper into the stories shaping our world. A trusted tradition for more than 2 centuries, the Farmer's Almanac, providing long-range forecasts to generations.
Hey, they've got the weather covered for the entire winter. How can they be wrong?
We'll explore the science behind these gardeners' Bibles. But first.
Today, we join over 150 countries who recognise a Palestinian state.
Canada joins the UK and other nations in recognizing the state of Palestine ahead of this week's UN General Assembly. Joanna Romiliotis, co-host of The Fifth Estate, recently traveled to Tel Aviv, where she sat down with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, who's on his way to Canada this month to promote his 2-state peace plan.
Last month, as the war in Gaza raged on and anti-war protests ramped up in Tel Aviv, the Fifth Estate went to Israel and the West Bank. We also sat down with former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert. Olmert will be in Canada later this month, promoting his 2-state peace plan. Olmert was a fixture in Israel's hawkish right wing and mayor of Jerusalem before becoming Prime Minister in 2006. His political views on Palestinian self-determination had shifted by then, and he spoke out in favor of a Palestinian state. Olmert's political life has also been plagued by scandals. He served 16 months in prison for corruption and was released in 2017. He remains a public figure and has become an outspoken critic of the ongoing settler violence in the West Bank and the war in Gaza.
How do you explain Gaza to the world? Human rights organizations are calling it a genocide. What do you call it?
No, I don't call it a genocide. It's not a genocide to start with. 2.2 million people are still there. You know, genocide is that a majority of them will have disappeared, which they are not. There are massive number of casualties, massive number of people killed, exorbitant number. I mean, unbelievable, unacceptable and unforgivable. A lot of them were fighters of Hamas. They deserve the punishment. There is no question about it. But if 30,000 were not, and they were killed, even though they were not, this is heartbreaking. Now, I think that it's very difficult to explain it. And that's why I have been saying now for more than a year that we have to stop the war.
I want to get your thoughts on why you think it's important to keep the spotlight on the West Bank when the war is raging in Gaza.
The West Bank is part of the territory which has to be negotiated between us and the Palestinians for possibly will be a comprehensive peace that is based on the creation of a Palestinian state alongside the state of Israel. Palestinian state will have to be established on the basis of the 67 borders. In other words, the West Bank territories will be the major part of the Palestinian state. And therefore, whatever happens in the territories presently will determine to a very large degree the success, the possible success or failure of what I consider to be the most fundamental, most important, most crucial political process that we still have to face. And that's why it's very important. And what happens in the territories on these days, perpetrated by the settlers, I mean, not all the settlers, but a much larger part of the settlers than they like to admit, is part of a strategy of the Messianic groups, of the partners of the present government, which is aiming at creating a momentum that will force the inhabitants of the West Bank to perhaps move out, just as they want to do in Gaza. So it's one tied to the other. You can't really separate.
You were a proponent of settlements at a certain point. So can you tell me, what was the turning point for you when you decided that this was not the path for you?
Look, there were dreams and fantasies going back to the 70s, now 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago. And I was part of these fantasies. I was swayed by these fantasies that somehow we'll be able to live together with open hearts and open minds and equal rights and so on and so forth. And I was taking part in these fantasies until I began more than 30 years ago. I became the mayor of Jerusalem. And for the first time, I was becoming in charge not of making speeches and of just empty rhetoric, but of the actual day-to-day control of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians and the need to take care of their needs as my residents in the city that I was a mayor of. And I then understood, it dawned on me, that the gap between the quality of life, the joy of life, the options for the Palestinians in East Jerusalem in comparison to West Jerusalem is unbridgeable. I always thought, and I think today, by the way, that every piece of land from the river to the sea is deeply and intimately connected with the history of the Jewish people. It has relations to the Bible stories that you are familiar with. But then we have to make a choice. We have to decide what is more important for us, to be obsessed by the prayers of our history or to be determined and to be motivated by the chances of our future. If we want to recognize the rights of other people, if the choice is between expelling Palestinians from where they live or expelling ourselves from the territories where they live, there is only one option which is acceptable to me: to expel ourselves from that territory and allow them to exercise their rights of self-determination and to establish the state alongside the state of Israel and hopefully create a momentum that will bring us to a cooperation, to mutual respect, to mutual acquiescence, and to peace, to genuine peace. This is possible.
What do you make of, or what do you hope will happen with the declarations we're seeing from countries, including Canada, of recognizing a Palestinian state?
I plan to be in Canada the end of September for a conference, but had Prime Minister Carney, who is relatively a newcomer to these issues. I know he came from the different part of the public life. Had he asked me, I would have said to him, look, I'm in favor of a Palestinian state. I have been fighting for it, advocating it, proposed it as a solution to the Palestinians already almost 20 years ago. Why? This is a question. I don't know that my answer is perhaps the best one, but at least it is something that needs to be discussed. Why support a state that doesn't exist, which is what you plan to do? You recognize the Palestinian state. Palestinian state doesn't exist. Rather than use all your political power and all your networking with Europe, with France, with Great Britain, with Germany, with Italy, with the others, together with America, to force the two leaderships of two sides, the Israeli leadership and the Palestinian leadership, to embark on negotiations that will create a Palestinian state within the framework of a comprehensive agreement.
Do you still believe a two-state solution is possible?
Sure. Look,
where does your optimism come from?
First of all, because I'm an optimist. And, to be in Israel today, to be a veteran, of whatever I've been through in my lifetime for more than 50 years in the center of public life in the state of Israel, you can't survive if you're not an optimist. And also because I believe that a lot can be done with the firmness, determination, and the total devotion to the principles that you believe in. I had different opinions in the past. I was more right-wing. But when you have to assume the responsibility for decisions that will determine the lives of millions of people, you have to rid yourself of all the prejudices, all the preconceptions, of all the biases that directed your activities and thinking throughout your careers, and focus on that which will make the difference to make life of people worthier, safer, more qualified, more valuable. And therefore, I am a believer. It can be done.
Olmert's visit to Canada next week coincides with a big week at the United Nations, where Canada and other countries will declare their recognition of a Palestinian state.
And Joanna, your team's investigation with the Fifth Estate looks at settler violence. How does that tie in?
Well, Canada has repeatedly condemned the escalating settler attacks against Palestinians, as well as the expanding Israeli settlements in the West Bank, because those settlements are illegal under international law and because Canada says they undermine a future Palestinian state in the West Bank. But our investigation reveals that Canadian charities continue to send millions of tax-deductible donations to support those settlements that most of the world, including Canada, considers illegal, and even the Israeli military. That's in clear violation of public policy and tax rules in Canada.
Okay, we'll watch for that Fifth Estate investigation coming up in mid-October. Thanks, Joanna.
Thank you.
As Joanna mentioned, Israel continues to expand West Bank settlements, including a 12-square-kilometer patch of land known as E1, which threatens to derail the two-state solution. Monday on The National, Margaret Evans explains what's at stake and why Palestinians say it will crush any hope of statehood.
Ma'ale Adumim rises out of the desert like a fortress, imposing itself on the horizon. The mayor says they've been waiting to build an E1 for 30 years, that the settlement needs more room for growing Israeli families.
I think it's correct that at a strategic level, Ma'ale Adumim be connected to Jerusalem. Jerusalem is our capital city.
The Palestinians say building an E1 will sever their physical connection to Jerusalem and split the West Bank in two, making a contiguous Palestinian state with East Jerusalem as its capital impossible.
Also Monday, Chief Correspondent Adrienne Arsenault heads to the UN General Assembly in New York, where she'll host the National, as Canada joins several other countries in recognizing Palestinian statehood. Coming up, the secret formula behind more than 200 years of weather prognostication.
How warm are the oceans? How cold are they? What's the polar vortex doing?
Why millions of readers still flip through the pages of the Farmer's Almanac. Next. Long considered gardeners' Bibles, a pair of farmers' almanacs have been predicting long-range weather for more than 200 years.
As a confession, I enjoy the Farmer's Almanac.
Both periodicals highly protective of their secret forecasting formulas.
I think a lot of people wish it was folklore, like, we took a chicken and spun it around.
So how do they do it, and how accurate are they? Senior meteorologist Johanna Wagstaff explores the history, the science, and why millions of people still turn to these books each year.
These little books have promised long-range weather forecasts for about 230 years. But do they actually work? The oldest of the almanacs is the Old Farmer's Almanac, published in 1792. I think a lot of people wish it was folklore, like, we took a chicken and spun it around, or...
looked at the woolly bear caterpillars.
And that's what I assumed too, that it was folksy wisdom rooted in observational truth, red skies at night, that sort of thing. But it turns out the forecasts mainly come from sunspots.
The big thing that we do is look at the magnetic storm cycles on the sun. And then, of course, there's things we have to tweak. We know that we're on a warming planet. So what's happening there? How warm are the oceans? How cold are they? What's the polar vortex doing? We've been working with a team at AccuWeather for 40 years. And so they use our proprietary formula that takes into account the sunspot activity to make those long-range forecasts.
Now, sunspots do signal increased solar magnetic activity, but their effect on Earth's weather is tiny compared to factors like greenhouse gas emissions. I was pleasantly surprised to hear them acknowledge climate change, but folding it into a sunspot formula doesn't suddenly make the science stack up. Still, the Old Farmer's Almanac sells 2.5 million copies a year, 500,000 here in Canada.
As a confession, I enjoy the Farmer's Almanac. I love the recipes and the anecdotes and the antidotes and the commercials, but hey, I'd be sacrilegious to say that I consulted the forecasts.
The editors claim 80% accuracy for their winter forecasts, but
this one said that the coldest part of winter in Ontario is going to be mid to late December, early and late January, and early February. Hey, they've got the weather covered for the entire winter. How can they be wrong?
Independent checks show that when they do get specific, accuracy hovers near random chance. Meanwhile, science-based seasonal outlooks rely on ocean signals, decades of data, supercomputer models. They're improving, but only about 60% accurate with less detail. Seasonal forecasting is tough for everyone. But the thing is, people might not be looking for that kind of accuracy from an almanac.
We talk about phenology. So when the lilacs are coming out, it's time to plant the peas or the potatoes. You know, this idea that we can look at what's around us. And yes, there's a certainty to the shape of the seasons. And I think that is what people are craving, is this idea that we are part of something larger. You know, we're all connected by this earth. We're looking out for her. And we do that in different ways.
Whether it's a 200-year-old book or a weather app that you're checking for the long range, the key is staying connected to the natural and warming world around you.
Of course, autumn begins tomorrow, so the big question, what can we expect from the upcoming season? The Old Farmer's Almanac says this fall will trend cooler from southern Ontario to Atlantic Canada, while the rest of the country will see near or above normal warmth. Still ahead, 2 dogs tie the knot at a brewery in Halifax.
The couple that was chosen with many votes was Hunter and Ava.
Their puppy love turned happily ever after in our moment. You're looking at the adorable canine couple Hunter and Ava, making their puppy love official with a tail-wagging wedding at a Halifax brewery. Proceeds from the sold-out event went to a local nonprofit. And tonight, the dogs that said, "I do," make our moment.
So Good Robot hosted My Big Fat Dog Wedding, which is Halifax's first and, as far as I know, only dog wedding. And basically, we had the public vote on a dog couple to be married. The couple that was chosen with many votes was Hunter and Ava. And they brought, they had a flower dog, they had a ring-bearing dog. The runner-up pups were there as well. They swapped bow wow vows. And local comedian Dan Hendricken was the officiant. So he hosted the ceremony, which was an absolute blast. I was fully anticipating pure chaos and was very pleasantly surprised at how well behaved this massive group of canines was together. To see laughter, to see cell phones, just hundreds of smartphones like this, people applauding. At the end of the day, made this so special.
Now, why did Ava and Hunter get chosen? Well, apparently these dogs are influencers and they have a lot of followers. And because this wedding happened at a brewery, the pooches were served a beer made specifically for dogs. Sounds like a perfect wedding. Thanks for being with us. You can watch anywhere, anytime on the free CBC News app and subscribe to the National's YouTube channel. I'm Erica Johnson in Vancouver. Take care.